Hello, all you amazing beings out there. We are Mindfeelz, and today we're doing something a little bit different. Taboo talks.
So we've asked some close friends of ours to put some topics, ideas, questions on a note card and pop it in this envelope for us. And we have not looked inside that envelope yet. And we are going to attempt to go in completely blind today and talk about some different topics. So we told them to let it go and do what they want. So we'll see what's in there. Do you want to pull the first card for us?
All right. So here we go. Ooh, can I scream?
No! Oh no, you can't scream.
Okay.
We're in this together.
Okay. I'll look blind.
Oh boy.
I got one. Feeling people's energy.
Oh.
Wow. Well, we do that a lot, so this is
a good one for us.
So, feeling people's energy. It's a little vague, but I'll just dive into what I experience from this. I'm very empathic.
Same.
It's like just my nature. I think part of it, just women naturally are a little bit more that way, and then certain people are a little bit more that way too. You pick up on things. So walking into a room, you can pick up on the moods, the energies, and the emotions of the people in the room. And a lot of times, like feeling people's energy, it's kind of like a superpower, but you have to learn how to tame it. I'm still in that process. I think it's a lifelong process, really, of kind of learning how to notice other people's energy, but not necessarily absorb everything either.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's a lot of learning how to temper it and learning what you let in and what you don't let in. And I think for me, a big growth process that I've been going through even just recently, as I've been doing more research and reading and spending time on the topic, is how to restore your own energy and understand that you're not responsible for everything that you feel from others. Because a lot of times I tend to want to fix things for other people. Like if I notice someone walks into work and like they're having a bad day, you'll feel it, you'll pick up on it. Maybe their interaction with you is not the same as it usually would be. And my first instinct is to go and be like, what did I do? How can I fix it? Maybe I said something. Maybe I should say something. Maybe I can change the situation because you feel it. And sometimes that can be helpful if it's someone close to you and you know them well, or you can just do it in a casual way and maybe help try to brighten someone's day by doing something nice for them or whatever. But a lot of times had to understand that a lot of what other people are going through has nothing to do with you. So even though you're feeling it and you can pick up on it and you can even sometimes, you almost feel it on a level, sometimes you hurt just for other people or you feel frustrated for other people or whatever, and you experience what they're feeling. It's learning how to not take on too much of that. And
absolutely.
And sometimes it's overwhelming for me sometimes, and I have begun to like accept myself that I'm a really sensitive person, and it can be a really good thing because it makes me really good at like things like parenting a sensitive child. I have been able to really understand him on an emotional level and get to know him. But sometimes in other relationships with people who are just expressing themselves and maybe they're naturally more assertive, but to me it feels like aggression because I'm a little bit more sensitive to that energy. Or, you know, maybe it's like an overexcitement all the time. It can be really overstimulating, and then I get bugged out and I need to go be quiet and like be in a different space. So I think like feeling other people's energy is something we should all acknowledge more.
And I don't think you have to be a more empathic personality to necessarily, I think we feel people's energy. Everyone does. Everybody knows. I mean, body language, facial expression, frustrations, sounds, noises that are coming out of the person. Obviously, the people that you love and care about, noticing their stuff is probably more natural to you because you're used to how they are, and then, you know, something shifts in them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this very woo-woo sort of thing, or like psychic sort of ability. I mean, it is, and it definitely goes there, but I think on a very basic level, we all feel people's energy. So I think it is an interesting thing, and I think that when we take it upon ourselves to try and fix that in people, sometimes we'll get exhausted, and that then all of a sudden we feel their energy in a negative way. So if they're, well, I shouldn't say that. If they're having a positive vibe, we feel it in a positive way. So feeling other people's energy affects us is, I guess, where I was going with that. So I think that's kind of a cool thing that happens, and learning to distinguish our energy from somebody else's then allows us to maybe not get wrapped up in if that energy is something that maybe we don't want to feel. Now, if they're in a great mood and they pop in the door and you haven't seen them in a while and they feel great, like that's awesome. But sometimes it's, the other way. So, I think that we all feel energy, and then some of us feel it deeper than others. And I think there's a lot of different avenues that we can take that.
I think it's something important. Everyone should just, people get kind of like weirded out when you use words like energy and, it's my superpower, whatever. But at the end of the day, we all pick up on stuff from each other. We pick up on those cues. Like you mentioned, faces, size, the way people breathe,
right.
You pick up on it. And I think it's cool. Like we should tap into that a little bit more, just in our interactions with each other, and maybe what we could affect for each other or change about ourselves just through understanding that we're all kind of connected. We're all kind of putting things out there in our own ways.
That's important.
And that's just looking, and even sometimes like realizing like everything that's going on right now, the energy of the world, and feeling that even. Sometimes it's a relief to just maybe release stuff that doesn't, just be like, it doesn't belong to me. It's just kind of an energy that I'm sensing that's around, or there's, moods of people around, or what.
I think empathy.
Mm-hmm.
I think empathy is really, has something to do with that. It's about, we can all use a little bit more empathy, I think, is really what that comes down to. And being sensitive to other people, but not necessarily meaning that we have to take on other people, but being sensitive and compassionate, and our abilities to recognize what's going on with others. So I think that's pretty important. And obviously right now is a special time, because I think a lot of people are feeling different things that they've never felt before, which for some reason that's more extreme than the normal things that we feel, because it seems to put a ripple in everything. So, but I definitely think that's something I would like to probably talk about a little bit more.
We might have to do a whole episode on this.
That was
more.
A cool one, yeah.
Or more. Yeah. No, and also, like, when you feel good vibes from someone, or you just connect on that level.
Oh, yeah.
That's always nice that happens. I think it's a really cool gift that we have, that we can pick up on each other.
People.
Well, yeah. I think you're next.
Okay, here we go. You didn't look, did you? You just went in.
I kind of just like shuffled around.
What do I do now?
I don't know. Read it and...
This one says rocks, paper, and scissors. Okay, I got this. So I think, I guess we could go the avenue of games. Games are geometry. Or creating.
Crafts, arts and
crafts. Okay, that's all I got for that.
I don't know what else we can say. Goodbye, thank you.
I get to go again. An answer for bullying. An answer.
No.
Okay, well,
stop it. You got 7 minutes.
Now watch this and put it out to all the schools. Thank you. So I think that I know that there's a big topic in general, and I think first along the lines of schools and in elementary school, and those sort of topics that we see when children are being bullied or not being treated compassionately. And I do think that that's a tough one, because there's like the school's responsibility, and then there's a lot of responsibility ends up on the parents. So there's these, I think, people get nervous, right, when they're talking about those, because they do tend to contradict. And I think that on a really general level, teaching, and it shouldn't be blaming or putting it towards one specific side, but more so, I think as a human race, we need to focus more on compassion and even empathy in these cases, and understanding that we all have different personalities. Mm-hmm. And even the bully has probably things that they're working through that they need to be taken care of. And you were talking about it today, the different attachment styles, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's been going on in that child's life, and once again, not to point fingers or to blame in any way, but to bring attention to the fact that we all could use more compassion, and then thinking about maybe the children that are being bullied, or even the adults or whoever it is on the other side of things, really working to help those people build confidence and find strength, and really work out of maybe those more fear-based mental places. So I think it's goes back to everything we talk about in general. Teaching at a very young age, self-care, teaching at a very young age, meditation, and practicing building who we are and finding our independence and our strength, but then also knowing our boundaries and knowing what's okay and what's not okay, and being able to follow the right channels and avenues to speak to the right people when there is issues and things like that. So, and I think there's so much. I mean, there's the school, in general, I think that it's tough. There's so many different personalities, and we don't always address all the different types of personalities yet. I think we'll get there one day. I think that we're moving more towards a more diverse world where we can address all these different personalities. But right now, I know we put a lot of emphasis on one style of curriculum or one style of being, and I think that makes it tough on children and people that have different ways of comprehending the world. So.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I have a school-age kiddo, and in kindergarten there were some instances where, like, certain friendships weren't great friendships, and maybe he didn't realize he was being made fun of by a friend, or a friend was leveraging things like, oh, if you don't do this, I'm not going to be your friend, and I won't like you anymore if you don't play this way. It's subtleties, and so, like, there's not a lot of preparation on the parent end of how you're going to deal with that when you have to, like, help your child through those experiences. But I believe that's where it starts. It starts at home. It starts with parents, whatever the parenting dynamic is. It's ultimately our responsibility to mold our kids and teach them how to treat other people, and teach them that golden rule of treating other people the way you would like to be treated, and speaking to someone the way you would like to be spoken to, and putting yourself in the other person's shoes, regardless of if you like them or you don't like them, putting yourself in their position for a moment long enough to keep yourself from doing something like that. And personally, it's like the way I parent is pretty intentional for those things. Empathy is really important for me. Compassion is really important for me. My son is on the spectrum, so he has different strengths. He has different struggles. And his emotional intelligence has always been something that's been like a huge strength for him, and something that he's really leaned into developing. And I think it's just important to do that as parents. And when teachers are noticing these things happen in school, being more intentional to work with the parents and see what's going on at home, because that's something that starts at the roots, of whatever the child is going through. There's something they're allowed to play that way somewhere else, or they're acting out on feelings of, whatever insecurity or aggression or whatever. Kids are changing so fast. They're developing so quickly. They need a lot of help navigating. And I think that in those big classrooms, and like you mentioned, everything standardized, everything kind of one size fits all, so that schools get their funding, things like that. It's a complicated situation, but at the end of the day, it starts with parenting. It starts with intentional parenting, and watch how your child interacts with their friends. Know who their friends are. Know what kind of games they're playing. That's important. And I know it's like, not that I'm the perfect mother and that I've always succeeded, and you won't be able to protect your child from everything. But a real answer is, each parent, one parent to one child at a time. I feel like just doing your best in that situation. Raise a good human.
Well, and you can go back to raise a good human. We can
and
go
if
back
they
to
mess up, if your kid's the bully, love them. Find out what's going on. Let them know that you still love them, but mold them out of that behavior, because, you can't pull that in. There's adults who are bullies out there who need some molding to help them get through it.
Going back to like feeling people's energy and empathy and compassion, just in general,
That's
I think
important life skill.
as we build all this, as we grow, as we add self-love, as we add cultivate all these practices, like that's where all this stuff, that those answers start to kind of weed themselves out, I think, because we build a better human race by all of these things that we talk about. So I think that's it's happening. I really believe it.
Yeah.
You ready?
My turn.
Who put rock, paper, scissors? I'm over here like, should I come up with something?
How do you define happiness? There's a song from a school play I could sing that comes to mind, but
Would you?
no, it was from like a Christmas Carol.
She does have a good voice, so maybe it will break out now.
We'll do that in another show.
Oh,
Will we?
special?
How do I define
I hope we will.
I think I've spent most of my time feeling happy because I decided to be happy. And circumstances are not really a huge factor of my happiness anymore.
Good.
Because
I like
that's very that's very tricky, because if you need everything to line up in order to be happy, you're going to be happy very rarely, because things almost never line up and things always change. But I'll say the things that make me really happy when I look at my life and I spend time in gratitude, because that encourages that feeling of happiness when you spend time in gratitude. And I think about, I'm happy that, I'm grateful for my health, my child, my healthy child, great people that I love, support. My happiness is more based around relationship, I would say, and my human, those are my treasures. So I have a lot of goals. I have things that I want to do to be successful. And of course, I want to acquire success so that I can be more helpful to others and do things like that. But at the end of the day, happiness is a decision, and it's a state of mind, it's a perspective, it's a point of view, it's a lens. It's not necessarily everything lining up and having all the boxes checked and then, okay, I'm happy because I got XYZ and yay. But when you get XYZ, it feels great and you can be like, I'm extra happy today. But in general, in order to feel that way, happiness for me is the decision I made to appreciate what I have, and that reminder to myself to feel grateful and focus on the love in my life and focus on things that I want to do rather than maybe what I haven't done or I didn't do well, focusing on the positive side of where I have to go. And happiness is simple for me. Just feel.
Yeah, you're happy.
I'm pretty happy most of the time. And even when I'm not happy, I end up being happy pretty quickly.
I think it's
I'd
a
rather
practice.
be that way.
It's a practice. I think it's so much practice. If you didn't start out happy, I think you have to cultivate happiness. You have to find happiness. You have to learn how to practice it, just like everything else. But happiness for me, more and more, I think it boils down to me kind of being the person I say I'm going to be, doing the things I say I'm going to do, feeling the emotions I say I want to feel. It's created, it's cultivated. It's with the times when I don't feel happy, those are the times where I really get to see, because I'm like, okay, wait, why don't I feel what's going on, and definitely it's not external. It's definitely internal. Mm-hmm. If I'm focusing on something external, then it's not what it is. So it doesn't matter, It's not like, oh, I'm going to be happy if I move to this state instead because the state's not making me happy. I think the state is in me, So, but that's just something I figured out along the way on a very it was something I've just been paying attention to a lot, but on a little bit of a psychological level, or even a more what am I trying to say? In terms of us, our basic physiology. Mm-hmm. I know that we release certain chemicals when we get rewarded or we get validated or these sorts of things happen. So I do notice more than ever, because the more in tune I become with myself, I notice that's really true. Mm-hmm. And it's the the goal or the idea or the more pure kind of it. The idea is like when I get to achieve it, the even better I feel. So an example of that might be, right now, just in my life, I'm working to be more joyful on a regular basis and more even keeled, because I tend to be up and down in my moods. And I've gotten really accustomed to being heavily excited and really overly joyful. And so sometimes my happy was like really up here. So then when I was just here, I was always trying to reach that really high happiness or excitement. And I noticed that always came with some deeper lows. So as I really try to navigate that pendulum, I'm trying to be that more contented, joyful, kind of at ease, graceful sort of space. And when I do hit that now, like that makes me feel really like I feel just good. It's like, oh, I feel good. Like I'm not overly focused on anything. I'm not sad. I'm not, trying to fix everything. I'm not trying to control everything. But like today, I just feel really nice. And those moments, because I'm just meditating myself into those places where I'm praying or I'm focusing on it or I'm writing it down intentionally. But when I'm finally there, I do recognize those moments. And I think whatever that is, those are my happy places now, where it's like I'm not fighting to try and make something happen, or I'm just contented, and I think it's gratitude.
So it's something inside of you.
It is gratitude.
It's something inside of you. And that's the thing, is happiness is something that lives inside of you, and
I think it's different for everyone.
Your own thing. And I feel like we could do another episode on this too. We got some good topics now.
We're going to keep them, and we are going to use them
because I was watching something, and I was watching a documentary on happiness, and there's actually genetic predispositions to be happier, to be naturally happy in a good, uplifted mood. And then there's actual genetic markers for people who tend to be a little bit lower. People who don't really smile everywhere they go and say, not generally in that up mood. They're just more kind of a little bit lower down in their demeanor. That's just the way they are. And that is interesting how some people, it takes very little to make them happy. My happy is pretty easy to get to, but pass me a chocolate bar, and I'm okay. But I do dip. But some people need a lot, big uplift to really shift their mood. And then other people, maybe they just don't want it as much.
Yeah, and then
it is easier for some people than others. I think that's fair. I think that's important to note that some days if you don't feel happy, nothing wrong with you. That's all right.
Well, and what is happy? I guess we could spend a whole time talking about what is happy.
We have to do another episode.
What is happy? We could probably, is happy defined by a certain chemicals in your brain? Is happy defined by a smile on your face? Is happy defined by a comfort with another person? So it's hard to say.
All of the above?
Too, yeah.
I don't know. We gotta,
I think it's different for everyone, but that's a cool one.
I think, is it your turn? Oh, it's my turn again. I think we have time for one.
Drum roll, please. Nervous. Why does this make me nervous? Okay. How to maintain our personal space while still remaining close to others. So I kind of feel like we just talked about this in a way.
We talked about this in our last episode.
So it's individuation, I think, is what we talked about last time. But how to maintain our personal space while still remaining close to others, just right away I'm thinking of creating our energetic field, and I think that comes from cultivating internally who we are, our authentic self. Even those morning practices and those routines and those meditations in the morning that help build who we are, what we want, and how we want to portray ourselves, right? And then knowing that, so that as we go out into the world, when other people are highly influential, or if they're the first thing that we talked about, if we're feeling their energy, then we're able to kind of almost project at least enough of a field to not be too penetrated by that energy or by that. And then I think that there's another thing, there's that respect, because we can walk around, and I'm imagining this 6-inch like field around each of us, right? Like that's who we are. And then you have who you are, and we can like be who we are no matter how close we are together. You know, like I can still be Sheena and and all the person that I am, and I can be highly influential, and I could still accept all your viewpoints and who you are and what you're doing, and we can really exist, and we can learn to even compromise if we want to work together, right? I think we do that, right? And there's definitely, in building the podcast, there are times where I think I have a great idea, and then maybe she says something, and the ideas don't necessarily fully match, and we have to figure out a way to make them work, and navigate that and communicate to each other what we really want and how we're going to move that together. So I think even communication is important.
Yeah.
In that, maintaining our personal space. So I think there's a lot to that.
It is touching a lot on that, but there's so much more anyone could spend time, but that juxtaposition of space and closeness, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like an interesting concept that a lot of times, like, we think that they oppose each other, like space versus closeness, but they're a part of each other.
For sure.
And being really close to someone also means that you respect the parts that are them, and you let them have that, and you don't need to be consumed, and you don't need to consume. And times when space is needed or it happens, even if you don't want it, you have to be apart from the person. Or
you just talked about it with when you talked about when your son do you remember what I was saying? What you were talking about your son, and sometimes you said you feel like, sometimes I need that space because he wants my closeness.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting, because
sometimes that can feel like smothering when we're in those instances when we know someone wants to be close to us. We want to be close. We get afraid we're going to lose ourselves, or we get afraid we'll be too vulnerable and then be taken advantage of. Whatever the reason is that we feel like we want to protect space. The real thing is learn who you are and always honor that person, and learn who the other person is and always honor that person. And if you can't honor each other at the same time, then that's when you take that break or that moment. And if that happens on a consistent basis, it'll fall off. That might not be a good close person anymore. But closeness doesn't mean engulfment. And sometimes, as a mom, like, I live in my little apartment with my 7-year-old boy. I'm his source of entertainment, especially right now that he's not able to go play outside with friends. But I get those moments where it's hard to explain to him at his level, I love you. You're very important to me. That doesn't mean we need to be touching and be on each other in the same room all the time. And he wants to be a part of everything I'm doing and follow me around, and I kind of need a little physical distance, but that doesn't mean that I have any emotional distance from him, and it doesn't mean that I want to be there for him less. And kind of like learning how to teach that to another person. You teach it to yourself in the process, because it's helped me understand how to respect other people's boundaries more, being in that situation where I'm the person who needs a little bit more space sometimes, and kind of be understanding of the other person and be compassionate towards yourself. And I think a lot of that, like, it's just a sense of awareness. How do you communicate? Just be upfront, be open and honest. And if it's someone that you don't have that ability to do that with, then you probably aren't experiencing that much closeness. So you might not need to worry and just take your space.
Yeah, sure.
If you do it, it'll probably be fine. So
I think we get better at it as we go on, and we honor it. It needs to be something that you actually are aware of and pay attention to, and we get better at it with time. And I think it always goes back to, if you're having a hard time with this, whether it be honoring it for yourself or for someone else, it's probably just an attachment style or something that was learned at a young age that you gotta work through, and that's just part of it. That's part of, I think, becoming an aware adult. And so if it wasn't the case in your life ever, that there are ways to work through it and to get into a better place. And I think that's where this becomes difficult, is when we weren't taught it, when we weren't shown it, and we weren't given boundaries, or we weren't respected when we had boundaries at some point in our lives, and that rolls over until we decide, okay, wait, this is something that I need to address.
I'm learning it as I teach
me
it to
too.
my child. It's been really helpful actually doing that. But I've been learning it in the process, and it's just that you find the balance as you go. It
Yeah.
changes. Do you think we have time for one more, or I think we might have done it.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to. We'll do it next time. We're just excited. I'm like, okay, what else we got?
I know. This is very exciting. We tried something new this week. I like it. And we'll still be doing our regular weekly topics. But I think
We're trying to do this.
Shake it up every once in a while. So we would always love to hear feedback and communication and comments.
Yeah,
from our
we're calling
audience.
this Taboo Talks, and we'll put it out a little bit more. But if you'd like to give us a topic to talk about that we go in blind, if you label the email, make sure you send it to our email, Taboo Talks. We're going to have somebody else open it up and write it down on the card for us. And then you're welcome if you want a shout out or something. Put your name on there, and we'll definitely shout out to you. But then if you just want to write us in about things you want to talk about, just a normal email is fine, and just send us something to talk about.
Always.
Yeah.
Always. So, like us if you like us. Please visit all of our social media pages. Please subscribe to this channel. Share it with anyone. Yeah. And I'm Lauren Garrison.
And I'm Sheena Dressel. And we are Mindfeelz.